Patrick, I'll start with you, mate. You've had a couple of days to digest it, I suppose, a little bit. How does it feel to be wearing the captain's badge around the club rooms?
Yeah, very, very proud. The kids were funny on Friday, but yeah, from a club I grew up supporting, and having spent the last 8 years here, a very proud moment to lead the club along with Tom, and yeah, we're both looking forward to it.
What are you most excited for?
Just being able to tell people what to do and they have to do it.
As if you haven't been doing that already.
No, look, we'll do it differently to Joel. We won't be able to fill his shoes. No one can. He's an incredible person, incredible player. We've both learned a huge amount from him. But we have a really broad group that we can talk to, lean on, always do. It's whilst we have the the decals on our locker, it sits far further than that. Even though we're the ones that get to sit up here today.
When you say you're going to do it differently to Joel, what does that mean? What are the differences in your leadership style, I suppose, compared to what Joel's was?
I think it'll sort of evolve as the year unfolds. I think we had a wonderful speech from John Segler on the weekend. That got the players up and going. So we might hear more from Segs, I think, Stu.
Yeah, Segs is very good.
So a little bit of that, but I think it'll evolve as the season sort of pans out, and there's always going to be different challenges that arise throughout any season. So I think it is a bit of suck and see.
Have you heard from Joel since your appointment? He's got his hands full with a young bub. You both know what that's like. Have you heard from him?
Yeah, he just said don't stuff it up.
He said set the foundations, it's hard to mess it up from there. So. Yeah.
And Tom, obviously you've got experience in the position you're in, but how does it sit with you working in this team with Pat as captain?
Yeah, it's ultra sense of pride, as Pat said. For me to sit second in charge to Pat Dangerfield and Joel Selwood is pretty incredible. I take it. It's massive. It really is. I can't sort of articulate how much it means to me to represent this club as a figurehead and to be seen in this light as vice captain. It's something I'm extremely proud of and something that I'm really thankful for.
Chris, what does it say about the relationship between Geelong Footy Club and Geelong the place that you've got the captain from Mulch Creek and Anglesey and a vice captain from South Barwon?
Well, we do pinch ourselves every now and again because we think more. I mean, I shouldn't speak too much about what Geelong was prior to my time because I don't understand it as well. But what I've come to realise more and more every year I'm here is just how clear we are around who we are and why we do things the way we do. And it's less now about sort of comparing ourselves sort of to other clubs or where we sit in the competition. It's more about being authentic to ourselves and what makes us feel the sense of belonging to the region. And I've used this example a few times, but I'm a city boy, and one of the challenges of coaching is trying to split up the group sometimes. When you're trying to split them in half, we do goal kicking comps occasionally, and it works at other clubs when you kind of say the city boys are over on this side and the country boys are over on that side. When we do it, if you include me, we've got about 4 of us on the city side. We've been unapologetic when it comes to our recruiting policy. If it's a 50-50 call, we're taking the local every time. And that's fine in theory, but if you're passing up the best players, then your club's not going to go too well. It's just happened that we think that the most obvious leaders on field for us this year happen to be local guys, and it's nice when those two things come together.
I suppose to you as well, when you're captaining the club from the area that you're from, sort of thing, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's pretty special. I probably talk footy with Tom more than I do any other player here, so that's been for the last few years. So we probably drive each other a bit nuts around that, but I think it's probably a positive thing because we're really strongly connected in that sense. But I still remember coming to games here, standing up on the Marooble side of the ground on a milk crate, watching Peter Riccardi and now we're playing and Chris is coaching his son. So, it's pretty special in that sense.
Is it something you aspire to professionally? I mean, you've got a lot of accolades in your career, but this is another one. Did you ever aspire to be the captain of the footy club?
Not coming to Geelong. Earlier in my career at Adelaide, absolutely, but I didn't understand truly what it was meant to be a great leader and a really good leader. And I think that was the youthful exuberance, if you will, around the perception of what a leader and captaincy means to an organisation. And I think it's not until you spend a long time at clubland, a long time in the competition, that you really get a grasp on what makes a great leader. And we've been so fortunate for my entire time at the club to have someone like Joel, who's been that cultural blanket for the group, that has been such a safety net for us. And along with Chris, there hasn't been much for us to do in a sense, because they've just been so strong in that regard. But from when I first came to the club, and from certainly when Tom arrived, we've got a core group that are all sort of fathers. There's probably 8 to 10 of us. So we have the same complaints, but also the same, I suppose, understanding that footy is a part of life. It doesn't dictate everything that you do. You need a balance. So I feel like, my leadership learnings over the last 10 years have been drastic, but it's sort of shaped, my view on what leadership is.
So is this the right stage in your career, do you think, for you to have this role? Because obviously you always talk about, do you give it to someone who's established within the club? Do you look at sort of a young emerging leader who you want to elevate, who might be in it for another 10 years? Where did that sit in the conversation in terms of where you're at in your career?
I think for me, it's for this year, and then we'll reassess as an organisation at the end of the year. We're not looking any further ahead than what we can achieve this year. It's not about going back to back. It's a completely different group to last season. So it's how we can prepare ourselves and give our chance the best shot at winning the 2023 Premiership Cup. So I dare say from this year, from us, you'll hear less about back to back and more about what's in front of us.
How do you find the time, Pat? You've got a young family, you've got a bit of work with the AFLPA, now you're going to be captain. Do you have more hours in your day than other people?
I think it might be the Geelong program that has more hours in our day, perhaps. We're so fortunate as a playing group to have the level of support we have from our coaches, from our administration, to run the program that we do. And it's unique in a sense of where we are geographically. And we do it our way. We understand that everyone has different things on in their lives, and we cater a program that caters for the individual. You've still got to collectively buy into what we want to achieve. But we treat our players as adults, and I think regardless of the situation that you're in, and Tom's and I are different to our 20-year-old recruits that come into the door. But we individualise it, which I think is really important, and that enables you to do stuff outside of footy, or inside it in this case, and it doesn't take over your life.
There's some big work to be done with the PA. Is it feasible to do all these jobs at once? Do you have that much time in your day?
Well, I'm not actually doing the work. That's for Paul and our exec at the AFLPA, and there's a fair bit to work through at the moment, but nothing that is insurmountable, that's for certain. So we're pretty much canvassing playing groups at the moment around this next CBA. There's a fair bit to go there, but we're positive we'll get to a great outcome for players, but also the competition and
Coaches.
and coach ex-players,
Alumni.
and have something that really reflects well on the contribution that players and ex-players make, but also understanding the growth of the game and the investment that's needed there as well.
Chris, I think Tom Atkins said last week that you and Simon Lloyd sort of led the process, speaking to the players to, I guess, come to the decision on the captains. Can you talk us through how it all went and how it worked? Because you hadn't had to do it for a long time.
No, it's been a different process, because I guess in theory we every year over the last decade or 12 years sort of ask ourselves the question, where are we at with the kind of leadership? And our leadership has evolved. What has stayed really sort of constant is that we have a 10-second conversation about Joel, and it's like, we think the best captain in the comp, so it makes sense to keep going there. And we are at pains to make clear that this is not a completely transparent process that we'd walk everyone through, but internally we're really clear on what we consider to be important in terms of leadership. And again, we've moved away from the traditional leadership group because we think when we look around our playing list in particular and our wider footy department, we've just got so many people that contribute to the way we do things. So if we're going to talk about specific issues, say for example how we want to tweak the way we play, then you kind of look around the list and you think, well, to have 6 people in that or 6 players in that room just doesn't make any sense. You know, we need probably upwards of 15 or 20 sometimes. And I think Joel retiring was an opportunity for us to embrace the change. And that's why, you know, in part, the discussions we've had have been more around what we want from those positions and those people as opposed to who it actually should be. And our view is when you have a really mature group, then you can have mature discussions with the people that have been around for a while and sort of rethink what do we want from this role given that we haven't had to think about it for 12 years. And the important part that we got to, and Steve Hocking was obviously really involved in this as well, our executive team were involved. The role of the captain has changed a lot since Joel started in 2012, I think it was. There's a lot of public-facing stuff. There's a lot of, and you know, to your point, Josh, the last thing that we wanted to do as a footy club is say, hey, let's take 2 of our best players and burden them with the role that's going to take away from the way they play on field. We want it to be the opposite, and that's the way, or one of the ways in which we're going to embrace sort of the change that we see in sort of modern day leadership. So, in summary, it was a mature discussion involving a big number of people around the club, but really framing sort of what we wanted from the leader as opposed to picking who we thought was necessarily going to be the best.
You obviously played alongside one of the great captains. Coach Joel obviously is a great captain. What makes a good captain and why do these 2 guys sort of fit that role?
Well, I'll sort of repeat what I said in the previous answer. It's moving with the times as much as anything. I think it's a big mistake to look back and say, hey, Michael Voss was a great leader. What made him great? I'm going to try to copy that and see if I can be, at best, you know, a B grade sort of copy. And it's a little bit the same with Joel. Like the worst thing that you can do when you've had a really great leader is just to try to imitate everything because you just won't do it as well. The opportunity we've got, you know, is to look at where we are at the time and act in a way that kind of represents who we are sort of in this moment. And like Stewie, you sort of said it and jokingly, but Joel's laid a pretty good platform. It's not as if we need to disregard anything that we did necessarily. It's just more about saying we're in a good spot, but let's keep thinking about how we're going to evolve. And it's probably symbolic of where we are as a team going into 23. Like the biggest mistake we could make is say, let's just do what we did in 22 and hope that that's good enough. We're sure that that won't be good enough. So embrace the change.